I set the salmon down like I always did on Thursdays. Dill butter melting into the flesh, lemon wedges fanned just how she liked them. The roasted asparagus with shaved Parmesan, not too crispy, not too soft. Her wine, Powley fume, chilled to 48 degrees, waited in the fridge like a secret I still kept. All the rituals of a man still pretending. Ava didn't even look up. She just laughed. That quick, nasal kind of laugh she reserves for one person, Ronnie. I didn't need to see the screen. I knew his cadence by now. Knew when a comma was actually a pause before something inappropriate. Knew how her thumbs moved faster when she typed his name. Just work, she said, the glow of her phone lighting her face in the dim dining room. Eyes glued to the screen. Fingers still moving. Sure. Just work had become her favorite lie. She used to at least try. A fake story about deadlines. A stray comment about her manager. Now she didn't bother. There was a time I would have pushed back, asked questions, poked at the edges until the truth cracked through. But that time was gone. What surprised me most that night was how unsurprised I was. I didn't speak. Not because I was weak. Because I was finished. I sat down across from her, folded my napkin over my lap, and studied the woman I used to recognize in the soft overhead light. Her hair was tied back carelessly, no effort. Her eyes flicked up once, briefly, and landed back on the phone. We ate in silence. Well, I ate. She picked at her plate between smirks and half-hidden grins. Her fork clinked against the china, rhythmic, careless. I noted how she scraped at the asparagus but didn't touch the salmon. Maybe Ronnie didn't like fish. Maybe he'd made a joke about it once, and now she couldn't disassociate the flavor from the punchline. There's a certain violence in being erased while you're still in the room. And yet, I didn't flinch. Because while she laughed with him through a screen, I was sitting with something far more dangerous. A plan. Because love, when it dies, doesn't make a sound. But betrayal? Betrayal hums. Quietly. Relentlessly. Like a pressure valve ticking closer to rupture. And that night, as the wine sweated against the glass and Ava disappeared deeper into her phone, I felt it. The crack. Hairline, but fatal. Just like I designed it to be. I'm a water systems engineer. I've spent most of my adult life studying flow, how pressure accumulates, where it finds release, how to design escape routes that don't shatter the whole system. Irony, I guess, that the same principles would end up saving me from my marriage. Ava always called my work boring. Said I thought in pipes and angles instead of emotions. She wasn't entirely wrong. But what she failed to realize, what she never cared to understand, is that engineering teaches you patience, precision, restraint, the art of timing. Over 18 months, I built an exit with the same logic I used to divert a flood. Not dramatic, not reckless, just quietly, efficiently, and irreversibly. It started with a trust. A small one at first, $75,000 seeded through a brokerage account under a shell name tied to a project I worked on years ago. Nothing illegal, just invisible. From there, it expanded. A second trust, then a third, each tied to different identifiers, buried in paperwork, so dry even Ava's lawyer wouldn't have the stomach to go digging. She never noticed. Of course she didn't. I handled all the finances. She said she wasn't a numbers person. Her strength, she'd joke, was in people. Charming them, disarming them, seducing them. It wasn't a joke, though? Not really. The house was next. That one took finesse. I'd purchased it before we married, but after the wedding, I let her convince me to move the deed into both our names. For love, of course. For trust. Big mistake. So, I reversed it. Not literally, but effectively. I activated a dormant LLC, Calliston Group LLC, registered in Delaware, where anonymity is a business model. I used that LLC to sell the house in a friendly transaction back to myself. The contract was airtight. The sale price was just under market, enough to avoid suspicion. And she signed the paperwork during a virtual notary session while sipping Pinot Grigio and half listening to her favorite true crime podcast. "You're always doing something with taxes," she said, clicking where I told her. "Just tell me if we're going to jail." I smiled. Not yet. That was in March. By August, every major asset, our vacation property in Asheville, the Tesla she claimed as hers, even the joint savings account, was gone. Converted, relocated, or secured. Quietly, strategically, legally. She noticed none of it. Because Ava lived in reaction, not observation. She never checked bank statements. Never read the mail. She trusted that her lifestyle would stay inflated because that's what I'd always done. Keep her floating, even when she punched holes in the raft. She mocked me once for reading every clause in our mortgage refinance. "You're such a dad," she said, laughing, phone in one hand, wine in the other. That's funny now. See, what most people don't understand is that betrayal is not a lightning bolt. It's not a sudden storm. It's erosion. Slow, methodical, cumulative. Ava's betrayal wasn't one moment. It was 1,000. Some big, some microscopic, all added up. I remember when it started. Not the cheating. That came later. What came first was contempt. Little eye rolls when I talked about work. The way she'd call me boring in front of friends, then say she was just joking. The way she'd pull her phone out at dinner. The way she stopped asking questions about my day. The silence. Contempt always comes before infidelity. It's the soil it grows in. So I built my exit the way I built storm containment units, layer by layer, valve by valve, planning not for if the breach would happen, but when. I started recording things. Receipts, emails, location pings. It wasn't obsession. It was insurance. I wasn't preparing for war. I was preparing for freedom. There's a copy of an invoice from a jewelry store in Chicago, Ava's favorite city. She claimed it was a solo work trip. Said she needed time to think. The invoice shows 2 items, one necklace, one engraved ring. Neither came home with her. There's a screenshot of a text from someone named Andrea. Funny thing, Andrea uses emojis like Ronnie. And Andrea sure seems to know a lot about what Ava wore to bed last Tuesday. I didn't confront her. I just documented. Confrontation gives them control. Silence, on the other hand, that terrifies people. Because silence means you're building something. They just don't know what. By month 12, I had every piece in place. The financial freeze was automatic. The moment I triggered it, all shared cards would be declined. Subscriptions canceled. Utilities transferred. Her Spotify? Gone. Her HelloFresh? Disconnected. Even her Amazon account, which she used religiously, frozen mid-cart. By month 15, I had mapped the full digital footprint of our lives. Where the passwords lived. What accounts she didn't know existed. How to close them. How to replicate her thumbprint using a gel mold I made when she was asleep. That one felt invasive. But then again, so did watching her kiss Ronnie in that elevator security cam footage. By month 18, I had backup plans to my backup plans. I secured a furnished apartment in a corporate complex downtown. Month-to-month lease. Utilities included. The keycard was mailed to my office. I changed my emergency contacts. Wrote a new will. Moved my private journal entries to a cloud account only I could access. Every trace of who I was with her, slowly deleted. And still, she never noticed. That's the part that haunts me the most. Not that she cheated. Not even that she lied. But that I was disappearing for 18 months, right in front of her, and she didn't even blink. She thought she was clever. Thought her secrets were slick, her cover stories tight. She didn't realize she was playing checkers with someone building a chessboard in another room. And every time she laughed at her phone, I just nodded. Because pressure, when handled properly, doesn't explode. It escapes that IT was a Thursday, fittingly. The last Thursday she would ever come home to our version of normal. Ava left that morning for what she called a strategy retreat with her team. I knew the itinerary. Knew the Airbnb address tucked in a cabin 2 hours outside the city. Knew that her luggage didn't contain a laptop or any presentation materials. I even knew the name of the Uber driver who picked her up, Rodrigo. She greeted him with a smile that used to be mine. And of course, I knew who was waiting for her. Ronnie. She thought she was clever, planning it on a weekday. Business casual excuse. Calendar blocked with fake meetings. I never said a word. Just kissed her forehead, helped her carry her suitcase, and waved from the front step like the idiot husband she believed I still was. She didn't see the duffel bag already packed in the garage. She didn't see the blank spaces on the bookshelf where the photo albums used to be, or the slight drag in my tone when I said, "Have fun." The second the Uber turned the corner, I went to work. There was no rage, no flurry, just deliberate movement, like a man finishing a checklist. I started in the bedroom. The drawers were already empty on my side. I took only what was mine. My cufflinks, my watch, a copy of East of Eden that still smelled faintly like campfire from a trip we took 5 years ago. Everything else stayed. Let her wonder if she was worth packing for. The living room came next. The furniture was rental grade, the kind chosen for style over comfort. The couch she loved for Instagram photos? Gone. Not sold, returned. It had been under a 6-month trial. She never read the return policy. I pulled up the app on my phone and tapped schedule pickup. A window opened for that afternoon. Convenient. Then the jewelry. Not hers. Mine. Over the years, I'd given Ava dozens of pieces, birthdays, anniversaries, peace offerings after arguments she started but never owned. I'd logged every item, kept receipts in a folder labeled gifts, tangible. That morning, I went through the list, matched each piece, and photographed them with date-stamped verification. Not to take them back, just to prove their value had always been one-sided. They stayed in the safe. Unlocked. Empty now, except for one note. Logged. Transferred. Insured. The garage was last. She never paid attention to that space. It smelled like old wood and motor oil, which she hated. But to me, it was sanctuary. My tools were already boxed. The Tesla charging station? Deactivated. She wouldn't know until the battery blinked red. By noon, the house was hollow. Still looked like ours, but it wasn't. I left just enough behind to keep her disoriented. An illusion of normalcy, staged like a museum exhibit. Marriage, 2009 to 2025. The real twist came with the lease. 3 weeks prior, I'd quietly transferred ownership of the property to Calliston Group LLC. Once that was complete, I signed a rental agreement between myself and the LLC, naming myself as tenant for 30 days. Then, last week, I filed a termination letter. Today, I backdated it. On the kitchen island, I left the keys, the garage remote, and a manila envelope. Inside was the lease termination notice, a new lock code, and one final line in my handwriting. Welcome home. This is a rental. Lease and Sunday. No signature. Just enough space between her and reality to make her question how long it had been happening. I cleaned up, took one last look around. The fridge held exactly one item, a bottle of water. Nothing else. The silence inside the house was so complete, it felt like standing inside an abandoned film set. And that's what it had become. Ava had built her fantasy inside these walls. She believed she was the director, the star, the heroine of some passionate subplot. What she didn't realize was that the set was rented. The script was mine. By 2 p.m., I was gone. Not out of town, just out of reach. I checked into the furnished apartment under a different name. The desk clerk didn't ask questions. The Wi-Fi worked immediately. The blinds pulled tight. I turned off my phone, pulled the shades, and lay down on the bed I now called mine. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel rage. I felt still. At 3:17 p.m., my phone buzzed once, an alert from the home security app. Ava had returned. I watched on the Nest cam as she opened the door, tote bag slung over her shoulder, sunglasses pushed onto her head. She walked 2 steps into the house, froze, then turned full circle. She walked past the couch, stared at the empty dining table, called out my name. Twice. No answer. She walked into the kitchen, saw the envelope, opened it, read it once, then again. Her body sagged just slightly, like the tension that held her together had snapped. She opened the fridge, saw the bottle of water, and smiled. Not confusion, not amusement. Panic, carefully wrapped in a smirk. Because even Ava, queen of denial, knew what that bottle meant. I was gone. Not hiding, not watching. Gone. By 4 p.m., she was on the phone. Bank first, then the credit card company, then the leasing office. I had already notified each in advance. Every call followed the same script. Yes, ma'am. The account is no longer under your name. Yes, ma'am. The video record shows your authorization. Yes, ma'am. We're legally unable to assist further. The cracks began to show. She threw her phone onto the counter, pushed a chair, screamed, not loudly, but desperately. Then she stopped, sat down, and stared at the envelope like it might rewrite itself. Meanwhile, I was watching from a safe distance, drinking tea, checking my email. The power to the house had already been scheduled for termination. Internet too. I gave her 72 hours. Then the silence would become total. Because when you erase yourself correctly, they don't even know where to begin looking. And the ones who once held all the power? They finally feel what it's like to lose control, without a single word raised against them. Ava always underestimated silence. She thought danger came in shouting matches and slammed doors. That betrayal had to look like lipstick on a collar or an argument echoing down the street. She didn't understand the kind that builds in spreadsheets. in paper trails, in systems designed by someone who already knew exactly what she would do next. When she came home to the empty house, she thought she'd seen the worst of it. She hadn't. The morning after her return, she made 3 phone calls before 9 a.m., none of them to me. First was the bank. She wanted access to our joint accounts. They informed her the accounts had been closed. Not frozen. Not paused. Closed. By who, she asked. By you. The teller replied, pulling up the video file. They offered to send her a copy. Digital fingerprint authorization, retinal scan, hers. The timestamp was from 2 months ago, during one of her spa weekends. She remembered the wine. She remembered the bathrobe. She didn't remember the clipboard I'd handed her under the pretense of refinancing options. I didn't, she began. But she had. Every detail, every page, every signature was hers. She hung up. Her second call was to her mother. She needed sympathy, support, someone to say she was the victim. She didn't get it. Maybe you shouldn't have let it get this far, her mother said. He always paid attention. You just didn't like that he noticed everything. She didn't call her mom again after that. The third call was to her lawyer, the one who helped us draft our will. Ava always liked to use professionals. She felt smarter than. He was a young guy, nice suits, fast talker, a little too fond of metaphors. She explained the situation. He asked if she had access to the marital trust documentation. What trust? She asked. There was a pause. She didn't know about the trust. Not the real one. Not the one built to protect the assets in the event of infidelity or reputational harm. She'd signed it, of course. It was buried in a packet during a kitchen remodel 4 years ago. Clause 7C, in fact. She was distracted, half listening, nodding along as I explained escrow and cabinetry. Her lawyer told her he'd review the situation and get back to her. He didn't call again that day. She drove to the branch in person, marched into the office in full Ava mode. Expensive coat, tight jaw, righteous indignation. She demanded to see a manager. They showed her a screen, her own face, authorizing the transfers. Thumbprint, digital signature, timecode. You asked us to expedite it, the manager said gently. She left without a word. That night, she posted a vague story on Instagram. A single black square. Caption, some people are cowards. No names, no comments, just enough to make herself feel like a martyr. It got 17 likes. No one asked what happened. Meanwhile, her phone bill bounced. The joint card she used for her Uber subscriptions? Declined. The Peloton app she never actually opened but always paid for? Locked out. Her world didn't implode. It dissolved, one automated message at a time. By day 3, she stopped pretending she was in control. She called me. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, she said, voice too casual. I think we need to talk. Not in a weird way, just, talk. I feel like we maybe jumped the gun here. Jumped the gun? I listened to the message twice. Saved it. Then I did something that even I didn't expect. I didn't reply, because sometimes silence is an absence. It's preparation. I waited until the court date. Ava had filed an emergency hearing, claiming undue asset separation, malicious financial concealment, and abandonment. Her lawyer clearly thought I'd show up rattled, maybe even remorseful. Instead, I arrived with mine, Marla Grant. 63, hard as marble, smiled once in law school and never again. She didn't bring a briefcase. She brought a single manila envelope. Ava walked in dressed for sympathy, cream sweater, minimal makeup, delicate cross around her neck. She wanted the court to see a woman done wrong, a wife caught off guard, a mother abandoned. Never mind that our children were adults, that we hadn't spoken as husband and wife in over a year, that she hadn't said, I love you, without a scream between us and longer than I could remember. Her lawyer started first, spoke of betrayal, of marital obligations, of financial cruelty. Then Marla stood. Your Honor, she said, handing the envelope to the clerk, we'd like to submit Exhibit A. The judge opened it. Inside, a signed, notarized amendment to our marital agreement. Clause 7C. The infidelity clause. Dated, witnessed, perfectly legal. The clause gave me full authority to reclassify our joint assets in the event of extramarital involvement that posed reputational harm or breached fiduciary trust. In layman's terms, she cheated, she loses. And the best part? She'd signed it herself. With a smile, in our kitchen, during a remodel she insisted on doing in gold and marble. Ava's face drained of color. She reached for the paper, stared at it. eyes scanning for a loophole that didn't exist. "This isn't real," she whispered to her lawyer. But it was. She looked at me then, really looked. Not with rage, not even with sorrow, with fear. Not fear of me. I'd never raised a hand, never raised a voice. She knew that. No, this was fear of the unknown, of the realization that she'd underestimated someone who had always been 2 steps ahead, even when she thought I was standing still. The judge ruled quickly. No grounds for asset dispute. No basis for emergency relief. Case dismissed. She didn't speak to me in the hallway. Just walked past, eyes fixed on the floor, her heels clicking like a countdown. By the time she got home, her access to the Nest cameras was gone. Her email accounts had been rerouted. Her name removed from every utility. Even the thermostat wouldn't recognize her login. She sat in that empty rental house for 2 more days, trying to figure out how everything had unraveled without a single door slammed. Because she thought betrayal was something loud. She had no idea how dangerous silence could be. Courtroom smell like old carpet and quiet desperation. It's not like in the movies. No pounding gavels or gasps from the gallery. Just paper shuffling, muted coughs, and the faint echo of lives coming undone on legal stationery. Ava walked in with that same overconfidence she wore to brunches and betrayal. Hair pulled back, conservative dress, a folder clutched tight like it held a lifeline. She looked every bit the wronged woman. Her lawyer, new this time, older and more aggressive, carried a thick binder and a smirk. She didn't look at me as she took her seat. She looked through me, like I was already past tense. This was the big one. She wasn't after half anymore. She was after everything. The house, which I no longer owned. The car, which I'd legally sold. The remaining funds, which had long since moved into sealed, locked-down trusts that bore neither my name nor hers. And custody, not of the kids. They were grown. But of the story, the narrative. She wanted the court to declare, formally, that I had failed as a husband, that I'd abandoned her, that I'd weaponized silence as cruelty. She claimed emotional damage, claimed financial abuse, claimed that my covert financial maneuvers amounted to betrayal on a scale worthy of compensation. In other words, she finally realized she'd lost the war, and now she wanted a medal for showing up to battle late. My lawyer, Marla, didn't flinch. She never did. She wore the same navy suit she always wore. No jewelry, no smile, no wasted motion. When Ava's attorney finished a 15-minute speech full of accusations and adjectives, Marla calmly stood. "Your Honor," she said, "we have no rebuttal to the narrative offered today. However, we do have a document that may render further discussion unnecessary." She reached into her briefcase, not a flashy one, just worn leather, well kept, and pulled out a thin envelope, cream-colored, sealed with a red tab. She walked it to the bailiff herself. The judge opened it. Inside, one document. 4 pages. Single-spaced. Notarized. Time-stamped. Signed. It was the contract Ava had signed during our kitchen remodel 4 years ago. We'd argued for days about the new layout. She wanted an island. I wanted more counter space. The compromise was expensive, and we needed financing. In that process, I slipped in a secondary amendment. Clause 7C. It was drafted so subtly, so dryly, that most people would have skimmed right over it. And Ava did. Because she was sipping rose during the call. Because she trusted me to handle the boring parts. Because I was always the man who read the fine print so she didn't have to. Clause 7C granted me full and irrevocable authority to restructure, reclassify, or dissolve any jointly held assets in the event of personal misconduct resulting in reputational or financial harm. Infidelity, fraud, public embarrassment. It was all there. Legal. Enforceable. Signed. Ava stared at it like it had grown fangs. Her lawyer asked for a recess. Denied. The judge didn't ask for elaboration. Didn't need it. "This contract appears valid and legally binding," he said. "Is there any reason, Mrs. Halberd, why you would have signed such a document under false pretenses?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes darted to her attorney, who looked like he'd just swallowed his retainer. Then she spoke. "I didn't know what I was signing." The judge gave a small shrug. "That is not a legal defense, ma'am." That's when I saw it. Not rage. Not defiance. Recognition. She realized then, maybe for the first time, that the parachute wasn't packed. That the whole time she thought she was running the show, I was designing the stage. She'd laughed at me for caring about documents. for being meticulous, for spending my weekends with spreadsheets instead of spontaneity. But those spreadsheets had just won the war. She slumped slightly, like the weight of it was physical now. Her shoulders curled inward. She reached for her water and missed the glass entirely. It was over. The judge ruled that the contract nullified her claim to joint assets. The trusts remained sealed. The house and car? Legally hers no longer. The attempt to seize my remaining assets? Dismissed. And with that, we stood. It was done. Outside the courtroom, she followed me into the hallway. No cameras. No witnesses. Just two people who once promised forever and now barely shared eye contact. She spoke first. "I didn't think you had it in you." Her voice was low, not accusing, just lost. I said nothing. "I never meant for it to end like this," she added. "You know that, right?" I turned, looked her in the eye, not with anger, not with pity, just the cold, steady calm of someone who had finally finished something that took too long to begin. "I already gave you everything you said you wanted," I said, "just not in the way you imagined." She didn't reply, didn't cry. She just nodded once, like she'd read the last page of a book and realized the ending couldn't be rewritten. I walked away, not fast, not dramatic, just steady. In my coat pocket, I still had a copy of the clause she signed. Not because I needed it, but because I liked remembering how quiet, how surgical justice could be. The courthouse doors creaked open. A gust of fall air hit me in the face. Cool, sharp, clean. I didn't look back. Because some endings don't need punctuation. They just need to be final. Ava always thought reputation was a costume, something you could slip into, photograph well in, and take off when no one was looking. She crafted hers carefully. A curated life of brunch selfies, gratitude posts, and soft-filtered couple photos that made strangers comment, goals. But the thing about costumes is they fall apart under rain. And all it takes is one person removing the umbrella. I didn't blast her on social media. I didn't post rants or vague quotes meant to spark curiosity. I simply shared a private link. One folder, one note, to exactly 6 people. Each of them had a reason to know. One was her cousin, whom she borrowed $10,000 from and never paid back. Another was the friend she claimed to be so close with, but who she hadn't spoken to since the bridal shower. The others were old acquaintances, people who'd reached out over the years, quietly asking me, "Is Ava okay?" They deserved truth. So I gave it to them. Inside the folder, receipts, screenshots of messages, a synced photo library backup from her old iCloud account. The one she forgot was still linked to the iPad we kept in the guest room. One video clip, 38 seconds. Her, Ronnie, hotel room, timestamped, clear as glass, Nest Cam footage. Her voice in the hallway, telling him to be quiet because Gary's so paranoid about noise. I never said a word in the folder. No commentary, no captions, just evidence. Let the pictures speak. And they did. I never went viral. That wasn't the point. I didn't want sympathy or followers. I wanted oxygen back. And the moment I stopped shielding her reputation, it collapsed on its own. Her carefully curated world began to unravel. First, Ronnie's wife found out. She posted a calm, devastating message on Facebook. No insults, just screenshots, facts, dates, and one line that said it all. He was her strategy. She was his mistake. People didn't react with outrage. They reacted with exhaustion. Because the truth is, most of them already knew. They'd seen it in Ava's eyes when she talked about herself too much at parties. They felt it in the way she flinched at compliments that weren't public. She lived for the performance. And the audience had finally turned away. One by one, her alliances began to fade. Her work, friend group, stopped including her in after-hour events. One unfollowed, then 2, then more. Her influencer applications, rejected quietly. One brand she'd tagged repeatedly in posts issued a statement distancing themselves, though they never mentioned her by name. Her mother stopped answering calls. Her sister returned the Christmas gifts unopened. She still had Ronnie. For a while, he moved in with her. Or tried to. But see, Ronnie wasn't built for maintenance. He thrived on drama, on tension, on being the side dish no one admitted to eating. Once he was the main course, he got bored. 3 weeks after court, he left. Took the car, the half-full suitcase, and whatever part of himself he hadn't already spent. Ava posted a story that night. A black-and-white photo of her wine glass next to an open book. Caption, "Sometimes all you have is yourself." There were no likes. not even from her burner accounts. Meanwhile, I didn't have to say a thing. I went on with my life. Quietly, deliberately. My niece Kaylee helped me manage the trust. We met once a week at a small coffee shop tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. She brought her laptop and color-coded spreadsheets. I brought peace. She asked once if I was going to make a statement. I shook my head. I don't need to win the story, I said. I already won the silence. But Ava? She couldn't let it go. She tried to restart the narrative. She created a new blog, titled it Rebuilding Ava. Claimed she was going through a self-healing era. Used words like narcissistic abuse and emotional neglect. It didn't land. People had seen too much. She got desperate. Filed an appeal, alleging emotional damages, misrepresentation, and fraud. It was thrown out in 9 minutes. Her new lawyer didn't even show up. She called me after that. From a blocked number. I answered, not out of interest, but out of curiosity. Her voice was quiet. Stripped bare. I'm not asking for money, she said. I just want to talk. I waited. I don't know who I am anymore. That was the only honest thing she'd said in years. You'll figure it out, I replied. Silence. I thought we were a team, she said, more to herself than me. I didn't correct her. She was never on a team. She played solo, expecting applause from a bench she never glanced back at. Before she could ask for anything more, I ended it. I hope you find peace, Ava. Truly. But I won't be part of your audience anymore. Click. I didn't block her. She never called again. In the months that followed, I watched her presence shrink. Her posts turned sparse, the lighting dimmer, the captions more cryptic. Eventually, the account went private. And then silent. Not deleted, just abandoned. A fitting end, really. Because Ava never imploded. She deflated. The version of her that relied on attention, on being perceived, on crafting stories, died quietly in the background of a world that stopped clapping. And I didn't lift a single finger. Because I didn't destroy her. She did. There's a certain kind of silence you only hear near water. It's not empty, it's layered. Wind through reeds. Soft waves against the dock. The creak of old wood settling beneath your weight. That's the sound I wake up to now. No smart locks. No alarms chirping. No background hum of a phone lighting up with notifications she forgot to silence. Just stillness. I live in a cottage by a lake. 1 bedroom. Tall windows. A narrow porch that wraps halfway around. I built the bench myself. Cedar, hand-sanded, sealed 3 times over. Kaylee, my niece, comes by once a week to help manage the trusts. She brings coffee and updates. She never asks about Ava. We don't talk about the past. We don't need to. Sometimes I take the canoe out before sunrise. The water is like glass then, untouched, reflective. I like watching the way ripples move without urgency. No destination. Just motion. Last week, Ava's lawyer emailed. A simple request. Would I consider renegotiation? He used words like restorative, amicable, flexibility. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I didn't even respond right away. I waited 2 days. Then replied with 1 line. I already gave her everything she said she wanted. Just not in the way she imagined. That was the end of it. Now I read more. Fix what's broken. I don't rush. I don't reach. I breathe. Some mornings, I catch myself waiting for the tension to return. The second guessing. The noise. It never does. Because peace doesn't announce itself. It just arrives. Quiet. Unapologetic. And it stays. If you're listening without a subscription, now is the time. These stories don't write themselves. And some silence deserves a spotlight. Some revenge is loud. But the most dangerous? It's whispering.